Grant,
Grant,
please, not here. This is my mother's funeral. That broke old woman in the box? She didn't leave us a dime, Audrey.
I wasted 5 years on you and your worthless family.
She just died. Can you please just...
You know what your problem is? You're just like her. No money, no connections, no value.
I'm asking you to lower your voice. What? You're nothing without me. You hear me? I should have listened to my mother.
She told me don't marry that black girl. She's got nothing to offer.
Audrey said nothing after that. She just looked down at her trembling hands and let the tears fall onto her lap. But here's what Grant doesn't know. The woman he just called worthless, the broke old woman in the box, she had a secret so big that when it comes out, and trust me, it's coming out, Grant Wilson is going to wish he never opened his mouth. To understand how we got to that moment in the church, we need to go back a little. Audrey Moore was 34 years old. She lived in a small two-bedroom house in Charlotte, North Carolina. Nothing fancy, thin walls, a leaky faucet in the kitchen that she kept meaning to fix. Every morning she woke up at 5, brewed a pot of coffee in the dark, and ironed her scrubs while the sun crept through the blinds. She was a pediatric nurse at a community hospital, the kind of nurse who remembered every kid's name, the kind who slipped extra stickers into her pocket because she knew the little ones needed something to smile about. Her coworkers loved her. Her patients adored her. She drove a 10-year-old Honda Civic with a cracked dashboard and a rear-view mirror held on with tape. She packed her own lunch every single day, not because she had to, but because that's how her mother raised her. Simple, humble, grateful for what you have. Now, her husband, Grant Wilson, 38, white, mid-level insurance adjuster, grew up in a wealthy family in the Charlotte suburbs. Country club dinners, private school, a mother named Pamela who wore pearls to the grocery store and looked at Audrey like she was something stuck to the bottom of her shoe. When Grant first met Audrey, he was charming. Opened doors, pulled out chairs, told her she was beautiful. But that version of Grant had an expiration date, and once it expired, what came out was something ugly. 5 years into the marriage, Grant had turned into a man who controlled everything. Audrey's paycheck went straight into a joint account, one that only Grant had the card for. She had no credit card in her own name, no savings he didn't know about. If she bought groceries, he checked the receipt. If she filled up gas, he asked where she drove. And the words were the worst part. Your family has no legacy. You married up. Don't forget that. Look at the women in my circle, then look at yourself. He said these things at dinner, in the car, in bed before she fell asleep, over and over until Audrey started to believe them. Now, let's talk about Lorraine Moore, Audrey's mother. To the world, Lorraine was a retired school teacher, 68 years old, lived in a small brick house on the east side of Charlotte, drove an old Buick with a dent in the bumper, wore the same 3 church dresses in rotation. Every Sunday, second pew from the front, Bible in her lap. That's what everyone saw. But what nobody knew, not Audrey, not Grant, not anyone, was that Lorraine Moore was the silent founder and 71% majority shareholder of Evercrest Holdings, a pharmaceutical and biotech conglomerate, valued at over $100 billion. She built it decades ago with her business partner Harold Stern. But Lorraine never wanted attention. She structured everything through trusts, shell companies, and anonymous holding entities. Her name appeared on nothing. She lived like a woman with a pension, because she chose to. And she watched. For years, Lorraine watched Grant tear her daughter apart piece by piece. She begged Audrey to leave. "Baby, you deserve more than this." But Audrey, loyal, quiet, conflict-averse, always said the same thing. "He's my husband, Mama. I made a vow." So Lorraine did what Lorraine did best. She planned. Quietly. Precisely. She called her attorney, Theodore Calloway, and she revised her will. Every single line was deliberate. Every clause was a weapon wrapped in legal language. Then, one Tuesday morning, Lorraine Moore passed away in her sleep. Peaceful. Still. The scent of lavender on her pillow. Audrey got the call at 6 a.m. She dropped the phone and sank to the kitchen floor. The coffee pot was still dripping. The sun was just coming up. And the woman who had been her anchor, her protector, was gone. Grant's reaction? He rolled over in bed and groaned. "How much is the funeral gonna cost?" That was the first thing he said. Not, "I'm sorry." Not, "Are you okay?" Just, "How much?" He told Audrey to keep it short. He refused to take a day off work. He complained about the price of flowers, said white lilies were a waste of money for someone who's already dead. And Audrey, still on that kitchen floor, still shaking, just nodded, because that was all she knew how to do. The funeral was held at Grace Tabernacle, a historically black church on the east side of Charlotte. Old brick walls, stained glass windows that turned the afternoon sun into streaks of gold and deep blue. The smell of oak polish and fresh flowers filled the room. A small choir stood in the corner, humming a hymn so soft it felt like a prayer. The pews were packed. Neighbors, former students, church members who had known Lorraine for 40 years. They came in their Sunday best. Some carried handkerchiefs. Some carried covered dishes they'd drop off at the house later. This was a community that showed up. Audrey sat in the front row, simple black dress, no jewelry. Her eyes were swollen and her hands were folded tight in her lap. She hadn't slept in 3 days. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw her mother's face, that warm, steady smile that always made the world feel a little less heavy. Next to her sat Grant Wilson, legs crossed, jaw tight, scrolling through his phone like he was waiting at the DMV. He hadn't even bothered to wear a tie, just a dark shirt with the top button undone and a look on his face like this whole thing was beneath him. And then, his mother. Pamela Wilson walked in 10 minutes late. Designer black dress, pearl earrings, sunglasses indoors. She slid into the pew beside Grant and leaned over to whisper in his ear. "At least this will be over soon. I never understood why your mother-in-law insisted on living like that." Grant smirked, didn't even try to hide it. The pastor stepped up to the podium. He spoke about Lorraine with the kind of love you can't rehearse. He talked about the 30 years she spent teaching third graders to read, the Saturdays she spent tutoring kids for free at the church, the way she'd slip grocery money into the purses of single mothers who were too proud to ask for help. Lorraine Moore didn't live loud, the pastor said, but she lived deep, and this community is better because she was in it. People nodded. A few women in the back dabbed their eyes. Audrey's lips trembled. She reached out and touched the edge of the casket, just barely, with her fingertips. And that's when Grant leaned in. You already heard what he said, but what you didn't see was the way he said it. He didn't whisper. He didn't even try to keep it between them. He said it with his chin up, like he wanted people to hear. "Stop crying. Your mother was worthless, just like you. She left us nothing but debt and embarrassment." The woman sitting behind Audrey, an 80-year-old church elder, put her hand over her mouth. 2 rows back, someone muttered, "Lord have mercy." Nina Davis, Audrey's best friend since childhood, gripped the wooden pew so hard her nails dug into the varnish. But Audrey? She didn't move. She didn't respond. She just sat there, tears sliding down her face, staring at the white lilies on her mother's casket. Nina leaned forward and grabbed Audrey's hand from behind, squeezed it, held on like she was trying to keep her from drowning. The service ended 20 minutes later. People filed out slowly. Some stopped to hug Audrey. Some just touched her shoulder and nodded. Nobody looked at Grant. Not one person. After the church, everyone gathered at Lorraine's house, the small brick place on the east side. The kitchen counter was covered with foil-wrapped plates, fried chicken, collard greens, mac and cheese, sweet potato pie. The neighbors had been cooking since the day Lorraine died. That's what you do. You show up. You feed people. You sit with them in the silence. Audrey moved through the house like a ghost. She touched the curtains her mother had sewn. She ran her fingers along the spines of the old books on the shelf. She stood in the doorway of Lorraine's bedroom and just breathed in, trying to catch the last trace of her mother's perfume before it faded. Grant found her in the kitchen, alone, leaning against the counter with a glass of water she hadn't touched. "So, did your mother have a life insurance policy?" Audrey looked at him. "What?" "Life insurance, a policy, something. There's got to be something, right? Even a small one." "She was a teacher, Grant. She lived simply. Then this whole thing, the flowers, the church, the food, this was all a waste of my time." He said it like he was talking about a bad investment, not a funeral, not his wife's mother. A waste of his time. Audrey opened her mouth to respond, but Grant's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, and his whole face changed. Softer, almost a smile. He turned his back to Audrey and stepped out the back door. "Hey, babe, yeah, I'm still here. Should be done soon. Miss you too." That was Tiffany Coleman, 28, blonde, Grant's mistress for the last 11 months. And he was talking to her, laughing with her, while standing in the backyard of the woman he'd just buried. Audrey watched him through the kitchen window. She couldn't hear the words, but she could see his face, the way he smiled, the way he leaned against the fence with one hand in his pocket, relaxed, happy even, for the first time all day. She turned away from the window, set the glass of water in the sink, and said nothing. Now, here's something Audrey didn't know yet, and this part is important. For the past 14 months, Grant had been opening credit lines in Audrey's name, forged her signature, used her social security number, racked up over $200,000 in debt, all under her identity. Credit cards, personal loans, a line of credit at a bank Audrey had never even stepped inside. He'd already spent most of it. Trips with Tiffany, a new watch, payments on a car Audrey didn't know he had. And now the bills were starting to come in, and Grant needed a way to cover it. That's why he wanted to know about the life insurance. That's why he was already planning his next move. He'd contacted a realtor, behind Audrey's back, to list Lorraine's house. He figured the property was worth maybe $150,000, enough to cover part of the debt, enough to buy himself more time. Audrey had no idea. None. 2 days passed. Audrey barely ate, barely spoke. She went through the motions, waking up, going to work, coming home, staring at the ceiling. Grant didn't ask how she was doing. Not once. Then, on a Wednesday afternoon, her phone rang. "Mrs. Wilson? This is Theodore Calloway. I'm a senior partner at Calloway and Stern. Your mother retained our firm for over 20 years. Audrey blinked. "I'm sorry, 20 years? "Yes, ma'am. Mrs. Moore was a long-standing client. She left very specific instructions regarding her estate. I need you to come to my office this Friday, 10 a.m. "Okay, I'll bring my husband." A pause. Then Calloway's voice, calm, firm, deliberate. Mrs. Moore's instructions were explicit. The initial reading is for her daughter, and her daughter alone. Audrey didn't know what to make of it. She assumed it was about the house deed, maybe a small savings account, maybe a note. But Grant, who had been standing in the hallway listening, heard everything. He walked into the kitchen, slowly. His face was tight. "What lawyer?" "My mother's lawyer. He wants to meet on Friday." "Why can't I come?" "He said my mother's instructions." "I don't care about her instructions. I'm your husband. If there's anything of value, it's half mine. Don't forget that." Then he picked up a glass from the counter and threw it against the wall. It shattered across the tile floor. Water and glass everywhere. Audrey flinched and stepped back. Grant stared at her, pointed one finger at her face. "If you try to cut me out of anything, I will make your life a living hell. You understand me?" Audrey nodded slowly. Her hands were shaking. Grant walked out of the kitchen. The back door slammed, and Audrey stood there, barefoot on a floor full of broken glass, completely alone. Thursday night, the night before the reading. Audrey was in the bathroom brushing her teeth when she heard it, the soft click of her phone unlocking in the bedroom. She froze, toothbrush still in her mouth, mint foam on her lips. She listened. Then Grant's voice, cold, loud. "Come here." She walked into the bedroom. Grant was sitting on the edge of the bed, her phone in his hand, scrolling through her messages. He didn't even look up. "Who's Nina texting you all this?" "She's my best friend, Grant. She's just checking on me." "Checking on you." He read the screen out loud, his voice dripping with mockery. "You deserve so much better. Leave him. That's checking on you?" "She's just worried about—" "She's poisoning you. That's what she's doing." He stood up. The bed creaked. He was close now, close enough that Audrey could smell the whiskey on his breath. "I don't want you talking to her anymore. You hear me? She's done." "Grant, she's been my friend since we were—" "I said she's done." He tossed the phone onto the bed. Then he pointed at her. That same finger, always that same finger, and lowered his voice to something worse than yelling. Something controlled. Something that crawled under your skin. "Let me make this real clear, Audrey. Whatever your mother left, a house, a savings account, a box of old junk, I don't care what it is. If you try to cut me out, if you try to hide anything from me, I will make sure you regret it for the rest of your life. You understand?" Audrey nodded. Not because she agreed, but because she had learned over 5 years that nodding was the fastest way to make it stop. Grant walked to the dresser, picked up her car keys, dropped them into his pocket. "You're not going anywhere until I say so." Then he left the room. The door shut, and Audrey sat on the edge of the bed, in the dark, in the silence, staring at the wall. An hour later, Grant was downstairs. She could hear him talking on the phone. She crept to the top of the stairs, bare feet on cold wood, and pressed herself against the wall. His voice drifted up, sharp and clear. "Mom, yeah, it's me. Listen, the lawyer called. Some guy named Calloway. Says he needs Audrey to come in Friday morning for the reading. Won't let me in the room." Pamela's voice was sharp even through the speaker. "That's suspicious. Why would they exclude you?" "That's what I'm saying." "Get power of attorney. She's emotional right now. Use that. Get her to sign something before Friday." "Already on it. I called Doug. He's drafting something tonight." "Good. And Grant, listen to me. That family never had anything worth fighting over, but just in case, protect yourself. Don't let sentimentality cloud your judgment." "Trust me, Mom, I'm not losing a cent to these people." These people. That's what Pamela called them. Not Audrey's family. Not your wife's side. These people. Like they were strangers. Like they were less than. Grant hung up, called his lawyer friend Doug. 20 minutes later, he had a document. A general power of attorney, drafted fast and loose, designed to give Grant full legal control over any assets connected to Lorraine Moore's estate. All he needed was Audrey's signature. Upstairs, the house was finally quiet. Grant had gone to bed. Audrey could hear his breathing through the wall, heavy, steady, already deep in sleep. The kind of sleep that belongs to a man who feels no guilt. Audrey sat in her mother's rocking chair. She'd brought it home from Lorraine's house the day after the funeral. It was old, the wood worn smooth from decades of use. The cushion was faded and soft, pressed into the shape of her mother's body after years of Sunday evenings spent rocking and reading scripture. When Audrey sat in it, she could almost feel Lorraine's warmth still held in the fabric. The faint scent of cocoa butter and lavender, her mother's smell, lingered in the fibers like a ghost that refused to leave. She rocked slowly. The only sound was the creak of the chair against the hardwood floor and the distant hum of the refrigerator 1 floor below. The streetlight outside the window cast a pale orange stripe across the ceiling. The house felt enormous and empty at the same time. She ran her hand along the armrest. Then, without thinking, she reached under the seat cushion to adjust it. Her fingers touched paper. She pulled it out. A small envelope, cream-colored, no name on the front, just a single line in her mother's handwriting on the back. "For when you need it." Audrey's heart kicked hard against her ribs. She opened it carefully, the way you handle something that might break, and unfolded a single sheet of paper. Her mother's handwriting, neat, steady, the same handwriting that had signed 1,000 permission slips. The same handwriting that had written, "I love you" on napkins tucked into school lunches. The same handwriting that had corrected grammar on third-grade essays with gentle red circles and smiley faces in the margins. My sweet girl, you are not what he tells you. You never were. Everything I built, everything, was for you. Be brave now. Trust Ted. He will explain everything. And remember, your worth was never his to decide. All my love, forever. Mama Audrey read it 3 times. Her hands were trembling. Tears hit the paper and blurred the ink at the edges. She pressed the letter to her chest and closed her eyes. The rocking chair creaked once more, then went still. She didn't understand all of it. Everything I built? What did that mean? Lorraine was a teacher. She rode the same bus route for 15 years. She clipped coupons from the Sunday paper. What could she have possibly built? But something shifted in Audrey that night. Something small and quiet, like a match being struck in a dark room. Not a fire, not yet. Just a tiny flame, just enough to see by. She tucked the letter back into the envelope, slid it into her robe pocket, pressed her hand against it to feel the shape of it against her hip. And for the first time in a very long time,